Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Ramunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Radha Madhava Ki Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So I will speak in English. Kishore kan du hast eine Übersetzung. You understand good English. Super. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, the 3rd canto, chapter 26. Chapter 26, which is called The Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. Text 16, okay. Very nice. Prabhavam, no, we do word by word and then I will do the lines, okay. Prabhavam, the influence. Paurusham, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prahu. They have said, Kalam, the time factor, Eke, some, Yataha, from which, Bayam, fear. Okay, this is two words together. Ahankara, Vimudasya, deluded by false ego. Katu, of the individual soul. Prakritim, material nature. Iyushaha, having contacted. Okay, now we will do line by line. Prabhavan Purusham Prahu, Prabhavam Purusham Prahu, Kalamekayato Bayam, Kalamekayato Bayam, Ahankara Viputasya, Kato Prakritimushaha. Prabhavam Purusham Prahu, Krishna, Kalamekayato Bayam, Ahankara Viputasya, Kato Prakritim Ushaha. Oh, ladies. Prabhavam Purusham Prahu, Kalamekayato Bayam. Okay, so the translation, oh sorry, no one else? Oh, it's okay. So translation by Srila Prabhupada of this verse. The influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death due to the false ego of the deluded soul who has contacted material nature. Purport. The living entity's fear of death is due to his false ego of identifying with the body. Everyone is afraid of death. Actually, there is no death for the spirit soul, but due to our absorption in the identification of body as self, the fear of death develops. It is also stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, Text 37, Bayam Dvitya Abhimanvesataha Shat. Divitya refers to matter, which is beyond spirit. Matter is the secondary manifestation of spirit, for matter is produced from spirit. Just as the material elements described are caused by the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Spirit, the body is also a product of the spirit soul. Therefore, the material body is called Dvitya, or the second. One who is absorbed in the second element or second exhibition of the spirit is afraid of death. When one is fully convinced that he is not the body, there is no question of fearing death, since the spirit soul does not die. If the spirit soul engages in the spiritual activities of devotional service, he is completely freed from the platform of birth and death. His next position is complete spiritual freedom from a material body. The fear of death is the action of the kala, or the time factor, which represents the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, time is destructive. Whatever is created is subject to destruction and dissolution, which is the action of time. Time is a representation of the Lord, and it reminds us also that we must surrender unto the Lord. The Lord speaks to every conditioned soul as time. He says in Bhagavad Gita that if someone surrenders unto him, then there is no longer any problem of birth and death. We should therefore accept the time factor as the Supreme Personality of Godhead standing before us. This is further explained in the following verse. Once again, the translation of the verse. The influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death due to the false ego of the deluded soul who has contacted material nature. Okay. Om Agyanitimirandascha Jnana Salankaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Shratadam Rina Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Daratisa Padandikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shasati Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Is it working? Good, okay. So, Mataji's, Hare Krishna. So, today we have a verse which is quite, more than anything else, it is on this topic of the fear of death, which is a very, one moment, sorry. It's a very important topic for many of us. When I was in my younger days in Krishna consciousness, I remember in England, I have no fear of death. I have no fear. And they were like, come on, you're really like low level if you have no fear of death. And I'm like, no, what do you mean I have no fear? It's fine. It's completely fine. In mid-20s, it was easier to say like this. So come on, if I die, I will anyway take the next body. Around 2 years ago, when many of us were affected by corona, I became very sick. And for the first time, I really had a battle where I couldn't breathe and I thought they would have to take me to hospital. And that was the closest I got to really feeling like this could be the end. And I was fearful. The fear was there. It wasn't necessarily fear over myself. It was fear of what would happen to the children, what would happen here. As a mama, one can understand this. What happens in the next level, but many things, one can say it was an overriding level of fear. And then with that came and said, but hang on a minute, am I not a devotee? It's as if I've understood the point here, then I won't have any fear. It was very interesting in this festival that we had just over last week that many gurus, I think His Holiness Satchidananda Swami, His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Maharaj and His Holiness Kadamakananda Maharaj Swami all mention this point that here we have on the altar Prahlad Lakshmi Nrsimhadev. And within us, when we speak of Hiranyakashipu, we're not talking of external demons, we're talking of our own. And that sometimes we are like Prahlad, and then sometimes we're like Hiranyakashipu. The first time I heard it, I was quite shocked. I was like, huh? Okay, I'm Hiranyakashipu, game over, like what's going on? But this repeated element of understanding, hang on, we have this part of Prahlad. Prahlad is a young, pure devotee, and this other element of Hiranyakashipu also there. One can understand if we take this in a non-dramatic context, that actually we are often in two worlds. It is actually written that we cannot be both in the material and spiritual world at the same time. So it is like this. Sometimes we enter into the spiritual world, and often we are then in the material world. And somehow, for my slightly fanatic utopian conception, I would have to say, I wondered, but how can I live in a temple for 10 years and have these other thoughts? Must be something wrong with them. Okay, they're like nice devotees. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Okay, maybe I should leave. Or maybe this point of Prahlad and Hiranyakashipu is very interesting because actually it gives hope. It gives hope because an element of our spiritual journey is this path which we call Krishna consciousness. It was not titled the Temple of Krishna or the Religion of Krishna. It is the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. And it's quoted that in order to be Krishna conscious, we must first be conscious. And this was also a quote which struck me in my earlier days in Krishna consciousness, because I thought, okay, I'm not very conscious, you know, like I live in London. You cannot be conscious of everything. It's overwhelming. It's like a crazy world, crazy city world. The things that I heard and experienced, one shuts down in one level. On the other side of it, I maybe didn't give enough appreciation of what it is to be Krishna conscious. That in every moment we have this element of being like Prahlad. In every element or time or opportunity, we also have this element to make a choice of where we're going. And sometimes we make the wrong choice and we head direction sort of Hiranyakashipu. But it's to also give ourselves enough of a break, that compassion of understanding to bring us back there, and to know we'll trip up a lot of times along the way. It's also, I think, in the 7th canto, they're written that when Nrsimhadev licked Prahlad Maharaj and put him on his lap, he put his hand on his head and created fearlessness. And he also gives that opportunity for us. There is this word here, bhayam, fear. So fear is there. At the same time, in my own reading, just as I was thinking of what I should read for this verse, it's the wrong one, here. Earlier on in the Srimad Bhagavatam, no, it was right the first time, sorry. There is a very interesting purport. This is on Canto 3, Chapter 22, Text 35. It's an example used about food. No? This is an easier thing. I'll just read some parts, okay? As freshly prepared food is very tasteful, but if kept for 3 or 4 hours becomes stale and useless, so the existence of material enjoyment can endure as long as life is fresh. But at the fag end of life, fag end, in England referred to as like the cigarette, the fag end, the end of life, everything becomes tasteless and everything appears to be vain and painful. This is in reference to the material life. The life of a man, Srila Prabhupada writes here, the life of a man in Krishna consciousness is always fresh. It is said that the sun rises in the morning and sets in the evening, and its business is to reduce the duration of everyone's life. But the sunrise and sunset cannot diminish the life of one who engages in Krishna consciousness. Oh, yo. Hello, Gita. Hello. You also thought you come to ladies' class. Time factor. So Srila Prabhupada writes about the time factor here. The time factor is a very interesting element because in this material world we are governed by it. Past, present, future. What is it? 8:15. I'm going to get in trouble if I'm not over in half an hour. You know, everything is run in this way. I was hearing a lecture from Srila Prabhupada on this same verse. And he said this concept of time factor is something we're governed here in this world, but actually in the spiritual world it is eternal. Eternal. So here we see our baby Gita. We can't help but notice her in this moment. So now she is a baby. One can hardly imagine in 10 years' time when she will be a 10-year-old girl speaking freely. Jai Shri Shri Prahlad Lakshmi Nrsimhadev Ki Jai. At 10 years old? Can hardly imagine at 21. Toshniyo, can you imagine her at 20? No, see, but this is the element of time that we are naturally influenced by. Yeah. I think she wants to give lecture. Give lecture? Come. We had this purposely set up. Don't worry, it's okay, don't be afraid. We have this purposely set up as a ladies' class because you don't speak though, okay, my sweetie? We set it up as a ladies' class because also of this aspect that we understand as mothers what the element is. But you see, just in relation to this, the time factor is here, and we can hardly help but behold the fact that as a young baby she's adorable. Huh? This is it. Now, when she's, sorry, Toshini, I just have to say, when she's 50 years old, it may be different. Huh? It's like a different part of where we are governed. And in this aspect of understanding that we are very much governed by this time factor, yeah, even though it's a part of the material world, yeah, no, that's not a toy. Although we are governed by this time factor, the eternal world works in a different dimension. Of course, in the spiritual world, there are babies, there are other elements, but it doesn't mean that we are stopped by what is here. Oh, you're just too beautiful. I don't know if I can continue, but you just stay. It's okay if she makes some noise, Toshini. This is all right. See, in one moment, one is absorbed. One cannot help it. One doesn't even have to be a mama or anything to appreciate this. This is the time factor. So it's in one sense it's beautiful. On the other element, it is part of us in the material world. Srila Prabhupada says the time factor. In the material world, there is past, present, and future. But otherwise, time factor is eternal. The time factor. It sounds like it could be some TV show. Oh, time, what's happening here with time, what's going on right now. He also says in this lecture that if we take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, which is called Abhaya Charan, there is no more bayam, no more fear. And when we realize that I am an eternal servant of Krishna, then again there is no more fear. And on that I was thinking, okay, we hear this. Many of you come to lectures or you hear regularly. We understand in one aspect, yes, I am an eternal servant of Krishna. But how does this play out in our day-to-day lives? And on this path where we can think, if we were only completely absorbed in the Lord, also as the form of Lord Nishingadev, then would there be no trouble? And then when we go further into it, in my experience with trying to assist different, in particular ladies in the ashram, there is one point which comes up, which is that sometimes at the beginning there is a high level of service and sadhana and things that we can follow, but later on we are not able to follow that same standard. And on that, for many, especially ladies, we take it in an emotional way. We feel defeated. We feel like, I don't want any more. I don't want to do this. It's enough. Obviously, I'm not a devotee. Huh? But sometimes I'm the same. It only came to me quite recently that it's okay really for these mistakes to happen. Huh? It's Prahlad Hiranyakashipu factor. Yeah? So sometimes we go astray. On the other side, on a practical level, it says in 12th chapter, verse 9, that Krishna says to Arjuna, if you cannot fix your mind in me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, you will develop a desire to attain me. And that was the topic that I wanted to speak on. This element of Bhakti Yoga is manifested through our sadhana. So our sadhana referring to our spiritual practice. In Shastra, there are different meanings written about sadhana. Srila Prabhupada wrote, said in a lecture, sadhana means the means by which we can achieve the goal of life. That is called sadhana. And the reason I speak of this is because many of you have been around some time. So sometimes we hear sadhana, we think of sadhana chart, and we think, oh, no, 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 no. Huh? Some people really like this chart. Kadama Kanana Maharaj almost excitedly showed me the sadhana chart, which develops, I think, over the years. To the point, I don't know what it's like now, but a couple of years ago, you could, on your chart, I think it's an Excel document, tick, and then it gives you a number of points at the end. Huh? It's really like, really to the next level of understanding. I don't talk about a chart like this in this way, because we have a mixed range, some new, some devotees who've been here quite some time. I found in my own spiritual life, living in the temple, having exposure to the deity and devotees every day, something was a little bit amiss. Huh? Yes, I had children, and of course they are easy to... It's okay, it's really okay. Really, leave. She also wants to take some notes, you know, for later on. I find now my children at 4 and 7, they also start to lecture me on certain points. So, yeah, it comes back. You also do to your mama sometimes, no? Sometimes, mama has to hear lectures from Namashanya. Yeah, so it's like this. Huh? This is the way, devotee children. Their exposure from the very beginning. So some elements which they're not even aware of are just very natural. Yeah, yes, yeah. You see, yeah, Lord Chaitanya. So now, okay, so we get a bit practical because often we do the classes like this. Paola, would you mind to give everyone a piece of paper? Even if you have a pad, you need some paper and a pen, those who don't have a pen. The pens are borrowed from our treasurer, Chitrahari Prabhu, with a promise that we will collect all of them back. So, okay. Oh, let me try not to spill the... Uh-oh. Do I have to put the water away? Will she go for it? The water. Okay. Now you can now we hand over to little Gita. Yes, very nice. So, when you have your pieces of paper. Yeah, see, very good, huh? When you have your pieces of paper, it's nice to be recorded, huh? Please fold your paper in half and then in half again, huh? Bitte falten so, Kishorikun so, in half und dann nochmal. Okay. Oh, nice that they have these. The funny thing is we have part of our names is Gita. So when they speak to her, I think they're referring to me, you know, like, oh, good smile. Okay, so has everyone a pen? A working pen, a mirror, you are okay. So because it is still a little bit of a sleepy Tuesday, I thought we could brainstorm together. You don't have to write anything now, but this will be for the end of the exercise. Okay, so the first element, smiley face, is what if people could tell me some spiritual activities that they like to do. I'll start everyone off eating prasadam. You like to do? Okay. Yeah, that you like, that really gives you some pleasure. So Damayanti is not here, but for example, kirtan is a big thing for her. Or kirtan, we're also kirtan. Asha, what do you really like to do in spiritual life? Okay, I'll come back to you. Toshani? Oh, eating prasadam. Okay, yes, she likes eating prasadam. Huh? Dancing.
Yes, serving others.
Serving guru.
Not just others also, not only guru, just it's pleasure.
The other Vaishnavas or just anybody? Vaishnavas? Yeah. Serving guru also. Okay. Listening to lectures. Uh-huh. Do you have a favorite? What's one of your favorite topics? Oh wow, 10 steps of determination. Okay. So we have prasadam, kirtan, dancing, listening to lectures, serving Vaishnava Guru. Anything else? Seeing the deity? It was pleasurable. Who said of course? Oh, Amira's like, come on here, Gopi Gita. Any more? Anything else? It comes, okay? Now the next aspect, oopsie, this is really like a shortage of chalk. So next aspect is the face like this. It's not sad. The face is not sad. Okay, paparazzi over, okay? So it's not sad, but it's aspects of our spiritual life which, oh, you're a star, which we need to do. So because nobody mentioned it, oh, right here chanting, oopsie, chanting. It is there said that chanting is somehow an austerity for some of us, for others. These are spiritual activities that we need to do. So things which are maybe not so easy for us, but we need to do. I also wrote, because some of us ladies have struggled with this over the years, reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Some of them could go both ways. Some people also listening lectures are quite tough, or serving Vaishnava. Sometimes there's also this regulation of, yeah, what can I say? I don't know how to put it, but people struggle with this. Okay, Mangalati. Okay, now Tulsi Puja. Okay, lecture. Okay, and tomorrow the same, and tomorrow the same, and tomorrow this sort of part which just becomes a little like, okay, sorry, I didn't manage it. So like this is what I mean. Regulation of, how can I write this? Routine or regulation or routine. What other aspects is something which you like to do or which you feel is necessary for your spiritual life, but is a little tough? Sometimes for people who are very quiet and prefer their own time, it's actually Sangha. That's very tough for people in both aspects. Some people really enjoy Sangha, but sometimes it's in either way. Either area you could go into both areas. I know one lady who was in the ashram, my Olivia, who loved to read. She was like, but why do I have to do service? I'm reading Srimad Bhagavatam. And I was actually a little bit I didn't know what to say, because actually it is service, but of course on a practical element, we couldn't get very far if there was no more. But in one aspect, it was not wrong. Okay. Now here, I put a heart here. Sometimes there are some deeper aspects of our spiritual life which have helped us. Often they are things we don't do so often, sometimes not often enough. I give an example, praying. Praying. Vandanam, it's an aspect of our life, praying to the Lord. When we are in difficulties, often we take shelter of ourselves or something else, but this element of praying. Also, some people, for example, he's not here, so my husband, it's very important for him to worship or to do his puja, even though he does puja here to worship. So it could be also, and I see that people who have their own deities over some time really develop an individual relationship. So it's like also sort of puja or worshipping your own deities. I wrote here this what Toshni said as something that inspired her, 10 steps of determination. That's just an example of this personal aspect where we find or feel inspired by something personal to us. So she heard some lectures and she actually likes to hear them. I personally like to hear and I can repeat it once or twice, but then I need to find something else. So it's like this, but there are certain themes. For example, for me it's overwhelming. My Guru Maharaj is His Holiness Satchidananda Swami, and he was here and he was speaking on Lord Nrsingadev. For me it's like, whoa, yeah, because obviously I have a relationship with Lord Nrsingadev, having been here for many years. And then when someone speaks on this topic who's also very close to one's heart, then it emphasizes it. So it's like this. Often, I think, Yulia, you also say you like to listen, was it to Srimad Bhagavatam? Audio, or who is it by? The Srimad Bhagavatam you listen to? Bhaktivedanta. So for example, sort of, I know others are also, there is also, for example, I hope she doesn't mind, our Tungabhadra likes to listen to, I think it's Indradyumna Swami's retelling of the pastimes, like the Pearl pastime and other things like this. There are some people who have certain favorite kirtaniyas, like Achutya Gopi, for example, I know kirtaniyas. And when they hear such music, for me, I also like, say, Janavi Harrison. When I hear, for example, Gajendra or Surrender, when I'm having a tough day, I'm like, okay, right, okay, it's okay. I'm not out of this world. It's okay. Some parts are here and there. The last aspect that I mean, this is only points of reference. Oh, my handwriting is terrible. I'm very sorry. You can tell me after if you cannot read anything. Another aspect is journaling. Journaling. Sort of, or realizations. Sometimes it is said, I think it was Burujan Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple Burujan Prabhu, who spoke about this aspect that as younger devotees sometimes of new, we think, we have no realizations. We realize nothing's happened. And we've already blocked ourselves off. We've already, no. Well, what can I know? But mostly, if we take on this process of journaling, sometimes on a specific topic, often after a festival, or say Rath Yatra, or where you've had an experience, for example, Asha just came back from Vrindavan, Mayapur. If you take that time before things are raised up to write down what these experiences were, you will often realize many realizations came. Why are these realizations important? Because these are our stepping stones to Krishna. It is not by chance that we came. Often I heard in struggles, I had also some Ukrainian devotees in struggles, one launched themselves by the lotus feet of Lord Nrsingadev. One prays to the Lord. And in this way he manifests. During the time of Corona, I had many big deities of the Lord in our temple shop. They all went. People just were seeking the shelter. And an element of when we seek shelter, we attain some level of shelter also. And when we go deeper, for example, in praying, some people say, but the Lord didn't answer my prayer. Keep praying, and keep seeing. He doesn't often answer in the way that you expect, but that's the point of the prayer. It's also when we go to other people to help, they often don't help us how we wanted them to help, but somehow they go in this direction. So this element is sometimes a very unspoken element, but a very important part, I found. Okay, so we move on the other side. That's meant to be an apple. Can you believe I went to art school? There's an apple. So these are aspects of what keeps us fresh, but what one wouldn't necessarily say are aspects of spiritual life. So I will say one, for example, exercise. Exercise. Yeah? Well, she says Gita, I'm like, hi, what did I do? So exercise. Has someone got something else? What do you do to keep yourself feeling good? Sauna. We're going swimming soon. Let's add this in. Swimming. Okay, so for example, if you want to get to morning program, I put it here, but maybe many of you like morning program. I used to actually love morning program before. So morning program. So to get there, what do we have to do to get us there? Sorry, it's already a preempted question. Sleep early. Sleep early. I recommend it to somebody that after a festival, even if you feel you were not overwhelmed, sorry, I'm running around, even if you are not overwhelmed with service, there is a lot that happens. And I think it's also spiritually, one also gets very tired when one has a very good experience even. One feels very drained. Oh, Mitravinda, I've seen you come to many festivals. Maybe when you get back to Dresden, you're like, oh, or maybe you keep. So you go, thank you very much, forest walks. So one has to recharge. And one thing that I often say is just over that time, take care of having enough sleep also. But going for a walk in the forest, we're very fortunate here that we live basically in the forest. Some people also have to go, I don't write diet because now for ladies, it's a little overemphasis on dieting and dieting. I'm going to write eat according to your constitution. So basically, there are some things, you may have some health problems or something, and then you may have to really take care of that so that you're able to function. So. The funniest example I have is of it's actually a Prabhu who was here in the ashram. Very nice, and he was into raw food. He came from raw food. So in the morning, he was always eating like just complete raw food and lots of fruit and vegetables. It was fantastic. But it meant that his vata was super high. And I was on the temple board at that time, and they were like, what's wrong with him? He's just like floating around. He's not able to give what he needs to do. And somehow, as he was much younger than me, they asked me to speak to him, and I was like, okay. And then he spoke of that it was important. I said, but your vata is so high. This khichdi is very helpful to bring the vata down. And we went backwards and forwards in the conversation. And after 2 months and a stint in hospital, that was something unrelated. He took this heavier diet, wonderful. He's like a devotee, I don't repeat now, but he's a wonderful second initiated devotee who does very well. But this eating, I think, had a lot to do with him. Sort of a nice. And the last one I put in, don't know if I'm allowed to or not, but I do anyway. Sometimes I think it's nice as a group together to speak a little of the things which are a bit, maybe not so openly discussed. I think by Kadama Kanamraj, she speaks of this anyway. But these things are the things which go against our spiritual life, but we sort of we do it anyway. So for some, not you like here, but for example, there was like the prevalence right now, I'd say in Germany, Austria, for the young people, as opposed to drugs, is this overuse of medicated drugs. So overdosing on, or to a level of becoming high, so to say, on drugs and medicine. So like this is like the use of drugs. And although you may smile at me or laugh and say, come, we don't have this problem, most likely you will have friends who may associate devotees or none who have this issue. Use of drug, okay. We write it anyway, we don't speak so much about illicit sex, but you know, a lot of it is an escape or a way out. A low-level problem which I found generally for my own life, also in ashram, was that when we're not in spiritual life, where are we? So often we are associating with people, and sometimes the conversation isn't necessarily bad, but it still goes on the negative slant. And for me, it's a balance up of not censorship. One has to speak and express oneself, but not to go to that level that when you leave that association, often or the other devotee, that you're feeling like, oh, something felt a little bit wrong here. You know, somehow it's like this. So it's normally of, sort of, what's the word? Useless conversations. Let's write like this. Don't get me wrong, there's sometimes some people need the element to speak about something, like, so I start to plant things. So I could come to Paula, I don't know if you have an interest in garden, but start telling you about these seeds and this and la la la. For you it may be a useless conversation, but for me it's good because I'm processing, you know. But it's also harmless. But other times we have conversations which maybe push us over into another element. So this is just an element that what I tried to do here was summarize an overview of our spiritual life. And we have now 10 minutes with the piece of paper because I wanted that you make this individual for yourself. Otherwise, if you began just to write, then often it's just random points. So on the first top quarter, maybe for the next few minutes, please write the spiritual. Are you up for this? Sorry, activity. I was just. Please write the spiritual activities that you like to do. So it could be any of this. It could be other things, also from this, but things that really make you feel like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm a devotee. I can do this. I like to be here. Oh, am I running? Let me sit down. Should I come? Yeah? You're a cameraman, Otto Shini. It's nice, huh? But I got away from that. So it's very personal, things that you really like to do. And there may be many things. If there are, then underline one or two which are super important to you. And if it's just a few, then it's, you can also clearly see what there are. I wanted to also just add, for the few mothers who are here or maybe listening online, on spiritual activities you like to do, it may be taking care of baby. So serving our little Vaishnavis or the Vaishnavas is also a spiritual activity in relationship to the Lord. Okay, some are still writing. You can easily move over to the next column. So here on the right, these are spiritual activities that, you need to do, but maybe it's like, you feel like, it's important for your spiritual life, but it's a little like, must I? Really? Maybe tomorrow? Sorry, I'm very a little, what's the word? Practical? What's the word? Down to earth. Down to earth. Kadamba Raj is also very down to earth. Oh, completely, yeah, you understand. Learning verses. Oh, we didn't have that. Maybe many of you don't. Learning verses is a very, very good thing to do. But yes, learning verses, unless you're Gauranga Gunanava, that's for most of us very tough. He will even go to learn more Sanskrit, so learning verses, yeah, I would write that on my sheet, learning verses. Yeah, it can be. This is everyone is an individual sheet. Okay, a few more minutes on the things that are maybe important for our spiritual life, but not so easy. It would be natural to go to the next one, but let's not do that because I don't want to end on bad habits. So let's keep going if you are on this, but for the ones some of you have finished, on the bottom right, on this side, please, those things that keep us feeling fresh that we may need to do in our lives, like exercise or sleeping early, or, eating according to your constitution. That was the best way I could write of this whole Oh, we have another baby. Hello, Heli. So yes, so on the last quarter, it's about what keeps us fresh in spiritual life. If you're an older devotee, you may also be having regular medical checks or other things which one has to do, or medication, or I don't know, supplements, or like this. For me, it's having a family. You see, children are noisy. This is just is to find time, a little bit of time for myself each day. Sometimes it's just 10 to 30 minutes where I'm just sitting, at peace or something, but just to find my sort of balance again. Some people may also have pranayama. Toshini? Pranayama, yep. Okay, and on the same sheet, on this bottom right, if there's any... I wrote bad habits, but things you can think of what stops you in your spiritual life. What I didn't cover there was maybe sometimes it's just like apathy could also be like this. You wake up and you're like, oh, I can't be bothered. Or it could be, look at you, you're never like that, but like, or you wake up and you think, this devotee. Like this. It's not a judgment, it's just something which stops you from thinking of Krishna. These bad habits may also be something that we like, but it's just a part which is like, Sometimes one can say bad habits, sometimes I also experience this sort of feeling of, what's the point? I've tried my best, but I don't know, it feels the same. And just to get over that point, I think, well, we'll give it another go, give it another go now. I tried singing, it didn't really come out, okay, I'll give it another go. let's try again. I try prayer. Whoa, so to overcome this sort of this feeling of helplessness can also feel like it's like a habit, meaning that it's in our consciousness, and often as we wake up, we have residual fears or feelings that come in our daily life. And in my own health healing, which has to be in conjunction with spiritual life, I began to understand that to kick some of these habits away, one habit of mine, should I share? Bad habit. It's like if there's a disaster zone, something's going down, I'm there. Let's try to save the world today. And that's also from my previous life. This is like if someone needs help, I'll come. But in spiritual life, I notice there's a difference here. It's basically not to shut one off, just me in my own bubble. But on the other side, to think, okay, can I help this person spiritually? Or am I just helping them to continue in their rat race, so to say, into their own? And an aspect that changed for me, instead of jumping in to help with any problems that were going on, was to pray to the Lord. Dear Lord, if I'm meant to assist or help this person with this, please show me a way or let me come forward in this. And I've had no one can say miracles, but very amazing experiences that sometimes that person who I see daily who's in trouble, the Lord pushes them that I don't see them for the next 3 days. So it's very clear. No, stay out of it. Other times I've prayed, and that person who I haven't seen but I think needs assistance comes right in front of me. My husband tells me often that a lot of it is understanding that it's not about I help. It's about understanding we are a servant of the Lord, and we assist anyone in their journey. And if we are to help or assist, then it will just come up in our path. So that is an odd bad habit of mine, but I found when I reduce this element of jumping in, then I'm much more free to think of Krishna, to do things. So now we move on the last aspect. I wanted to save the best for last, so to say. So hopefully you have a blank part here. And I put a heart here. So this was about the deeper aspects. One can also call it the individual aspects that keep you feeling, that have helped you in spiritual life. So I think we have on the board praying. We had the individual lectures, for example, that Toshni mentioned, also Yuli or others mentioned. They have certain people. You also certain kirtanias you like to hear. These parts, if you think back of maybe where it was a little tough, what helped you to feel a bit of a deeper connection to the Lord, a bit more deeper? And if you haven't had those aspects where you feel that deepness, please write down things that you'd like to try. So, for example, for me, it was only in the last few years, people told me, "Oh, I like to listen to this person," and then you listen, but it's not quite what's like resonating for you. Then you listen, and everyone, no, listen to this, and you try again, but it's not again quite what resonates. And it is an element of exploring, I think, also praying to find what really helps you, or really gives you some life. Yeah, one can understand a Chucha Gopi may not be for everybody to hear to, but for when I listen to her, I'm like, wow. I mean, actually, I cannot imagine anyone who wouldn't want to hear her. But, for example, some people need much more sort of focused or whatever. Danakeli Mataji, I think, told me for her, she needs to listen to Srila Prabhupada every day Srila Prabhupada. And I tried it. Actually, it's very helpful. But I think maybe it is this aspect of still at least feeling young, even if I may not be, and coming from a city, I very much like to hear sort of this modern day Krishna conscious talk, it's sort of put together. But that's for everyone is individual, like this. People also like to listen to wisdom of the sages, for example. Others may be, just listening to Bhakti Swami lectures of this person, this person. It's like a very individual process of how we listen. People often, it's important sometimes to listen in your mother tongue, because things can get lost in translation sometimes, like in Ukraine language. So many of you will maybe not be here next week, but next week I hope it doesn't scare you if I also give the second part of this. You have many things that are written on your sheet. Some of you are still writing. Please, often I've done sadhana charts with different devotees. They write it, and then you write it very quickly, and then one cannot fulfill it. Actually, the main point is to bring to consciousness more and more what makes you feel connected to the Lord. And if in the next week, as a joyful experiment, or maybe many of you will do it naturally, do more of the things that you like to do. Please continue with the things that you may have to do, and relish what comes up for you. Yeah? Yeah. Those who are here still next week, or maybe who listen online, we can then write down what is more appear like a structured sadhana chart. My sadhana chart is actually like this big, but it helps me a lot, I have to say. People otherwise like pages, but I like that it's short and sweet. It doesn't scare me then, but it gives me some life. Huh? Yeah. I also, you just remind me, little baby G. Yesterday I wrote a little sadhana sheet with my 7-year-old Charu Giridhari. And we spoke about what he wants to do. And he told me, because he has this small Gonitai deities. In the wintertime it's difficult to get flowers. So with children, as with many of us, we get out of the habit. So, but then I'm like, but Charu, there are many flowers now outside. He's like, yes, Mummy, now. We took, his Gonitai were also a little high for him. So we took them down. He made a little stand for them. And then, he begins now. Is she, like, oh, she's okay, huh? No. Yeah, so make a little chart of what helps him in a daily life. I think it doesn't matter if you're 100 years old or 7 or 8. This aspect of our spiritual life, if we understand, actually the last quote I give by in the Shastra, so it says that sadhana means cultivating something with an aim of objective. Sorry, that sounds so analytical, but objective. I mean, we're doing our sadhana in the end to reach Krishna, to reach Lord Nrsimhadev, to reach him in that form. That's the point of it. When our sadhana becomes a torture for us, when it becomes like, it cannot, we need to then redo it. This is why I do it a different way. Those of you not living in the temple, in one sense, you have more scope, more possibility to really make what it works. On the other aspect, it's more tough, because you have to be more motivated to do it. Those of you living in the temple, it's laid out in one sense, but often we need to bring the other things to keep us fresh, like sleeping early, taking care of our health, that we are fresh when we come. When we end up for Mangal Aarti, we're not on the floor thinking, oh God, when am I going to turn the lights off, turn the lights on, otherwise I'm going to fall asleep. Sorry, like a whole, like this. Huh? So it's just this aspect of, sorry, too practical, but it is this. If we're talking about our reality of our spiritual life, in one side, amongst each other, we should be a little, open as to where we're at, or otherwise, And then to realize that we're on stepping stones to the next steps. The other idea is also that we're a personalist religion. We have a personal relationship with our gurus, with the Lord. So this is why the sadhana is often needed to be individual for us all. Julia, was that okay for you? Yeah? Nice. Huh? So Julia came as a first time to Simhachalam this week. Very nice. Are there any questions or comments? Yeah, was it okay? Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for listening. It's yeah. please, I pray to Lord Nrsingadev that he can help us all with our true sadhana charts or sadhana aspirations, and let's see what happens in the next days. Okay.
I think that he looks very beautiful for us, yeah?
Yeah. We have ladies kirtan from 5 till 6 today, and we have swimming on Wednesday for people who
Outside or inside?
both. Like the water, not inside.
This is water, but
This is the Badapak. You have a question?
can you repeat what to write in this heart?
Aha. This heart was deeper aspects of spiritual life, or individual aspects. So something which makes you feel alive in spiritual life, but it's personal to you. So we had the example of Toshini with her individual lectures. So she likes to listen to 10 Steps of Determination. Our Yulia here likes to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. Like online, it may be for you, you said yes when we talked about Achucha Gopi, listening to her as a kirtaniya. There might be certain kirtaniyas or certain gurus or lecturers which you repeatedly like to hear. And oh yeah, I can understand that you cannot read it. It says puja, it's terrible, sorry. Puja stroke worshipping your own deities. People have their own deities. And there are different aspects, like as much as I can try, I can say I'm not a pujari. When I got second initiation, I was like, yes, da. My husband said, you're not a pujari. And I'm like, yes, I'm a pujari, like a whole. But I like to be near the Lord. But it's really, as a pujari, one has to be very much up for doing things in a very regulated way, which long term I cannot. Sometimes I can manage it. But also, that's the next level. But worshipping your own deities could be a form that you have. Almost 20 years ago, I was given a small Krishna. And for years, he sat there. I didn't know I was meant to worship him. I just wondered why he looked angry at me or something. But then, after some time, some shoes, some incense, some what, like this. So one develops. And after a bit of a period, you really hear that some people, sometimes very quickly, and sometimes over a longer time, develop their relationship. But basically, it's individual aspects, Mataji, of what makes you feel like alive in spiritual life. Damayanti, I mentioned you even though you were not here. We spoke on the different aspects of our lives, and the first part was what really gives you joy to do. And I mentioned you for kirtan. I can always see that you look joyful when you can do some kirtan. Or for our Samira, I'm not sure now, but before, when she wrote her first song with Paula on the Hare Krishna. Am I embarrassing you? I hope not. But but it gave some joy and some life, and it also gave life to the Sangha or the Kirtan that we had there. We have the reunion actually today from 5 till 6. That's so like this, huh? But these deeper aspects, I have to say, there was a point in my life where it was a bit of a blank. And where it is a bit of a blank, I'll tell you, it's very important over the time to think what nurtures me, or where do I feel maybe there's a lack, It took me a long time to really get into praying. Many people came and said, I cannot pray for my own needs, but it's also a level of surrender to pray when the problems are overwhelming, or even come in, even smaller problems before they become overwhelming, to go to the Lord and then to pray to him. Yeah, like this. Was okay? Namaskar, that make sense? Yeah. So please, over the week, experiment, see how it goes. And then the hope is that next week we write down a sort of simplified version of this that makes sense. Nice, okay. I'm going to get in trouble with Bashar if he comes. Nice, no one's running away. Some came in.